Hello and welcome to Robin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. Many thanks for joining us. It's election fever over here already as Nigeria moves closer to the 2027 general elections. This conversation will examine INEC's preparedness 1 year to the polls. Okay, so we're going to be talking about and assessing lessons from the 2023 elections, public trust in the electoral process, and whether INEC is institutionally and operationally ready to deliver credible elections in 2027. Now, I am going to give you a bit of statistics, and according to the research conducted, the registered voters over time in 2015 was 68.8 million registered voters. Now, in 2019, we took it a step higher with 84.0 million registered voters. And then later on in 2023, we had a record number of 93.47 million registered voters. However, there has been a decline in terms of the people that actually come out to vote. In 2015, out of that 68 million, we just had moderate turnout, almost half the votes. You know, we're talking about 43%. In 2019, it went down to 34.75%. And then in 2023, which we had the highest number of registered voters, there was a turnout of 27.1%, which is literally the lowest turnout since the return of democracy. And the big question now is, why are we having this declining pattern? To discuss this, joining me virtually is the resident electoral commissioner, INEC, Akwa Ibom, Barrister Obo Efaha. Welcome to the program, sir.
Very much, Hero.
Okay, so I'm going to dive straight into it. Why do you think we've had a decline in terms of the number of Nigerians that are willing to come out to vote based on the last election?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we need to interrogate the figures. You mentioned the figures of registered voters in the 2015 election and also indicated that subsequent elections, the number of registered voters increased. But what you did not take into account of was the method of accreditation of voters. The method of accreditation of voters in the recent elections have been more authentic than what we had in the past. And so when we say, for instance, that let's say a polling unit of 300 registered voters, when we say that 120 persons voted, it means that actual number of people who were properly accredited and voted is 120. In the past, the technology we used for the accreditation was such that it was not a top-notch. If you recall, in 2015 general election, the politicians pushed back on the use of the smart card reader for accreditation, such that on election day, during the presidential election, INEC said where the smart card reader would not work effectively, they could resort to manual accreditation. And we all know that with manual accreditation, it's easy to manipulate the figures. So for instance, in 2015, we had the total number of accredited voters across the country. You found out that in the presidential election, you found out that in 13 of the states, more than 1 million registered voters were recorded as having been accredited and voted in that election. But fast forward 8 years afterwards, in 2023, with the use of the bimodal voter accreditation system device, which is more accurate, the number of those millions dropped in such that only one state had up to 1 million accredited voters. So we also need to look at the technology to be really sure that the figures, the percentage we are looking at, is appropriate.
All right, so Barrister Obo, I actually take into cognizance of the fact that you did say that now we have the beavers, we have the technology, there's the IRF platform, and of course it is work in progress. Now, you did accredit the decline in the voter turnout to the technology. However, I also want us to see how we can also factor in, things like, voter apathy. There were certain regions in 2023 where, there were voter suppression and, issues like that. And also, we also know that even with the technology we're talking about, till now, we still don't know what has caused the technical glitch. The INEC has not come out to say this is exactly what the reasons are. But I'm not going to bore you with that. What I'm going to now ask you is, with the technology that we have, how can we be rest assured that the mistakes of 2023, and by mistakes I'm referring specifically to things like the technical glitches and all of the things reported as a result of the technology that we now use. In moving to 2027, what extra preparation is INEC making?
Okay, so thanks. We must also take note of the fact that after the 2023 general election, with the glitch that you made reference to, INEC has conducted many other off-cycle elections, and we did not experience what we experienced in 2023. So we've improved on this system, and we can only look forward to more improvement as we proceed. And so I am sure that going forward, we are going to notice these improvements. If people actually sit back and look at the processes after the 2023 general elections, you will actually notice that there's been an improvement in the quality of technology, in the use of technology, and the outcome of it in the subsequent elections.
Okay, what is the update with regards the electoral reform that is currently sitting the bill that is in the House of Assembly? What timeline? Because 2027 is just around the corner, and I think there's only just a bit of, I think, about 1 month window for it to actually be sent to the president and approved. Like, what is the progress on that? Because I believe that a lot of these issues that we faced in 2023 was addressed in the bill. Where are we with the bill currently?
Well, the bill is with the National Assembly, and so that question would probably be addressed to the National Assembly. We are an implementing agency, and whatever law exists, that is what we would implement. If you recall, in 2023, we also had a similar situation. We had an existing electoral act that was amended that we had to rely on until the 2022 Electoral Act was passed. And at the time it was passed, it was quite close to the time INEC was supposed to issue the guidelines, make the proclamation about the dates of the election. And so INEC had to now look at what the new law said and now act based on that. It was one of the reasons that the original date that we could have had the presidential election in 2023 was shifted by, I think, a week. So whenever if a new electoral act comes into being, then INEC would be bound to implement that. But if it doesn't come into being, then it means that we have an existing electoral act that we'll have to work with.
All right. There has been a very huge trust deficit, with not just the commission, but also with the current dispensation. Now, what is INEC doing in terms of voter education, and how do you think INEC is trying to win back the trust of the people? Because a lot of people still do not believe in the credibility of the body and the credibility of the elections.
Okay. All we can do is to do what we are supposed to do and do it well and improve on whatever we've done in the past. And like I said, that's what we've been doing since after the 2023 general election. We've had several other elections after then. The last of the elections we had was the one in Anambra State, the governorship election in Anambra State. So you may want to find out from those who participated in the election in Anambra State what their rating of the conduct of that election might be. Now, right now, we are actually doing the continuous voter registration, and there's been a lot of notification and information passed to the public about that. So we are engaging our publics in our various locations. We are also engaging with the media in some of these things, and there are also civil society groups that are also involved in this. But importantly, we like to stress that we expect the political parties to also up their game in terms of how they conduct themselves internally and also how they engage with the electorate in letting them know the processes that are going on so that they can participate in it. Because at the end of it all, the beneficiaries, the number one beneficiaries of the process are the the political parties. So they also have a role to play in engaging in voter education. INEC is doing so much already in that regard. We also expect the political parties to be doing same. Like I said, we started the continuous voter registration for this season in August last year. So between August and December, we had the first phase of the continuous voter registration. And then in January, we started another phase. We were doing this at the state offices and the local government offices of INEC across the country. But starting from tomorrow, we are going to the wards level, to the ward level for the registration to be done. So we are calling on members of the public. And I must say, in Akwa Ibom State, where I sit, we have seen a large number of people who have registered so far, and more are still waiting to register. They are registering because they want to participate in the election.
Okay. Barrister Obo, I do not mean to take you back, but this is a very important conversation. I know that you have clearly stated that we've improved in terms of the technology, but I really want to go back to the beavers. There is really a public distrust. And I think one of the things that are also fueling the public distrust now, amidst all of the campaign that is going on in terms of the continuous voters registration, which I personally think that INEC needs to do better in collaboration with the media and the civil society, because a lot of people still do not know. That I can tell you, especially the younger demography. But back to the conversation of the trust deficit and the conversation of the beavers. When you hear certain people also come onto the media, there was a certain viral video of an APC chieftain saying that, the election is a done deal, their candidate is going to win, people are hungry and they'll just give them 20,000 naira to vote. And even if they refuse the 20,000 naira, INEC is going to have a glitch, right? And this is an APC chieftain. No, so when you see conversations like this and there was no public press by the INEC saying that, please, Nigerians, we're assuring you that, this election is going to be fair, it's going to be credible, we're working on it. So, yes, please, can we really go back to what exactly, particularly, we're doing with the beavers? I know that you've already made reference to the elections that happened in Anambra State, but that is a difference. I understand that it's a benchmark, but again, presidential elections come with a lot of tension and come with a lot of pressure, so how are we sure that we're not going to have issues with the beavers moving into 2027?
Okay, so I'm going to explain in details what beavers is and what it does. But first of all, let me address the issue you said somebody bragged about how they were going to win election. I'm sure we've heard a lot of this kind of rhetoric from politicians at different times. We have been in this country long enough to know that politicians like to make those kind of rhetorics. And we've seen incumbent parties make those kind of rhetorics in the past and lost the election. So I don't think we should waste our time so much on that. Now for the beavers. Beavers simply means bimodal voter accreditation system device. What does the beavers do? Beavers at the beginning of the election, on election day, is used for the accreditation of voters. A beavers is configured to a polling unit. So when you go to your polling unit on election day, on the beavers that is configured for that polling unit, the register of voters in that polling unit is already imputed in that beavers. When you now go and you say that you're Mr. ABC and your name is on the voters register and you show your voters card and we see that the voters card is actually for Mr. ABC, we want to be sure that you are actually the owner of that identity. So with the beavers, we use two methods of accrediting, either your fingerprint or your facials. At least one of them must match what we have in the system. If it does not match, we will know definitely that you are not the owner of that identity and you will not be allowed to vote because you would not be accredited. But if it is yours, then it will allow you to be voted. And the beavers takes note of how many people have been accredited in that polling unit. Okay? So each person who is accredited is given a ballot paper to vote. The person votes, drops the ballot paper in the ballot box. At the end of voting, all the ballot papers are brought out, sorted out and counted, and the results is entered in the result sheet for that polling unit, the polling unit result sheet that comes in multiple copies. And then After this is done, copies of the results are given to agents of the parties present there. And we now use the same beavers and take a snapshot of the results of that polling unit as written in the result sheet. That is the photograph that is uploaded onto the IREV. IREV means INEC Results Viewing Portal. That is what is uploaded onto the IREV so that people anywhere who have access to the internet can see the photograph result of that polling unit and every polling unit.
Sorry to butt in, but there was a research conducted by the YAGA. YAGA is Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement. I don't know if you've come across that report. And in terms of the beavers and the results processes, you know, the beavers accreditation used and recorded was recorded in 93% of polling units, which means 7% was missing. The results and the photo scans taken was recorded in 83% of the polling units, while the attempted direct transmission via the IRF platform only recorded 59% of the polling units, which means there's a deficit of about, give or take, if I'm 69% rather, which leaves us with a deficit of about 31%. Now, this is a report by an independent body. I don't know if INEC has their own reports in terms of the success rates and implementation of what
I know much about YAGA Africa and the work they do, which is commendable. I don't know which of the elections this
2023 was on. 2023.
2023. Okay, good. But I also need to explain this. I was explaining the process. For now, our election is still manual. That is something everybody needs to recognize. Remember, I just explained how people, after being accredited, they are given ballot papers to physically vote and drop, and it is counted. The result is entered in the result sheet. A photograph of that is what is uploaded to the IREV. What is now used for the collation is the actual physical result from the polling unit. So from the polling unit, the presiding officer goes to the registration area, also known as ward, the collation center for that registration area. He goes there with the beavers from the polling unit and then the result sheet for that polling unit and meets the ward collation officer who receives all the physical result sheets from all the polling units in that ward and then collates in the presence of agents of all the political
parties. Okay, we've got that. Yes. We're almost running out of time, and this question is really important. I understand that earlier on in your opening speech, you did mention that because of technology, there is a decline in voters' turnout. But I can assure you, sir, with what
I didn't say decline in voters' turnout. I talked about percentage of voters with what is the registered voters, yes.
Okay, potato. However, there is really, people are scared to come out. I know a lot of people that didn't vote in the last election, even though they registered. Some people just want to register for documentation purposes. You know, it's part of the documents I have as a Nigerian. I have my voter's card. A lot of people are scared of going out because they're not assured of their safety. We've seen election violence here and there. Sometimes even when you go to certain polling units and, yeah. So please, what exactly is INEC doing in terms of the security architecture for this election?
Okay, thank you very much for raising this issue. I need to stress the point that the success of the election, the turnout and all that will depend not only on the conduct of INEC, but the conduct of multiple stakeholders. It will also depend on the conduct of political parties. It will depend on the conduct of the voters themselves. It will also depend on the conduct of the security agencies. Remember that INEC is not a security agency. We conduct the election. We are at the fulcrum of organizing the election, but there are so many other stakeholders that are involved with us in ensuring that the election is credible and there is safety and security during the election. We engage with the security agencies, but we cannot do their work for them. You would also expect that the security agencies should be on top of their games in terms of investigation, in terms of ensuring that the safety of everyone during the election. When there is breakdown of safety and security in election situation, is not everybody suffers, including INEC officials.
Right.
Okay, the voters suffer, even the media also suffers. So
Yeah.
every agency will have to do its own role, carry out its own role. But the question also is, who are the people who mobilize the people who carry out the violence?
All
It's
right.
the political parties. So
Yeah,
we
we're
need
out
to
of time
call them
now.
out.
We're out of time now, but thank you so much, Barrister Obo, for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robin Mind continues after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is Robin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the 2027 elections and how INEC is prepared for this election. And of course, right now, we want to move over to technology and the conversation around how Nigeria and Africa is evolving in terms of the technological landscape. For decades, Africa has been framed as a continent trying to catch up with the rest of the world. But in today's digital age, technology is offering Africa a different path, one that keeps broken systems, leapfrogs legacy infrastructure, and creates solutions designed for its own realities. Now, this conversation is going to explore how African tech entrepreneurs are using innovation to bypass traditional development models, scale impact, and compete globally. From fintech and artificial intelligence to talent governance and storytelling, this discussion challenges outdated narratives and asks the fundamental question: is Africa finally building on its own terms, with a focus on opportunity, accountability, and the future? Now, we're also going to talk about how technology is positioned not just as a tool for imitation, but as Africa's shortcuts to sustainable growth and global relevance. Now, to discuss tech as Africa's shortcut, not catch up, is a software engineer in the person of Steve Barr. Blessing. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
How you doing?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, anytime. So let's dive straight into it. Now, we are often regarded as the last markets where technology comes to play. We see a lot of innovation that happens abroad, and it has to happen in the Western markets before it comes here.
Exactly.
How is that narrative changing?
This is really changing because in the past, technology was copied from the Western culture. Because of imperialism and everything, they thought that development as an old mindset had to copy the same milestone as Europe or in the States, right? But today, we're learning that Africa can build its own because realities are different. So we have a chance to actually leapfrog and do different things than what they did and even pass them.
And do you believe that technology can really help us to sort of accelerate developments in this part of the world?
Yes, of course, and technology is even very critical for development because you see, with tech, especially high-tech, you need to invest, but it's cheaper to get developed, to invest in solutions, right? So with that, it closes the gap, the bridge between them and us. So technology is a key for our development, and I think we need to push and invest more in it and have infrastructure to actually build on it.
Now, you're from Ivory Coast,
yes.
And if you look at the technological landscape across Africa, from Ivory Coast to Nigeria, Angola, and what have you, how much of ownership do you think we have? And let me explain what I mean ownership. Like you said, a lot of this technology sometimes is adopted from the West, you know, and in the process of having a market share here, you also see that sometimes some of these bigger companies in the West buy over the smaller companies, and at the end of the day, it is still virtually being controlled by the West.
Of course, yeah.
So how do you think we can come to the level where we have a bit of ownership? Is that happening already? And how can we make that happen?
It's a great question because we're facing right now a huge problem. In Nigeria, about 80 to 90% of those big tech companies are owned by VCs from abroad, right? So there are two aspects of owning technology. Is the investment, like the shareholders, and then the technology itself, right? Of course, Nigerian and African are innovative, right? They create, they're very bright. But then when it comes to invest and build, it's always going to be from the West. So we need to have more local investment. Nigerians, maybe, with the help of the government, the private sector need to invest more locally so that we not only innovate, but we also own the technology.
Okay. And then there's also the issue of adaptability. Africa has its own unique problems. And sometimes when the models from the West comes here, sometimes it doesn't work. I stand to be corrected, but I did, read at some points that even Jumia, the e-commerce platform, is struggling in terms of losses, and they've invested so much and they haven't gotten their money back. And sometimes other models as well, they come to Africa, and because of Africa's unique problems, they're not able to thrive. And even when they are still in existence, they're having a huge loss.
Yes, it's not only Jumia, you also have Uber and these companies in Côte d'Ivoire, in Africa. The problem with Jumia was to deliver. How would you deliver a product without getting paid first, right? If you compare it to Amazon, if I may say so, it's completely different. Over there, everybody has a credit card, and it's automatic, and then it's secure. But here, there's a bit of trust that we need to have between clients and those people who sell. So, of course, we really need to have the technologies adapted for here, because here we have different processes, different culture, and different infrastructure. Sometimes things are missing or not. So there's an example where we can even pass them and leapfrog them for mobile money, for example. Africa innovated. We had the problem of banking, and then instead of copying what they did in Europe, they invented mobile money in Kenya. So with mobile money, we could actually close the gap, and then people are sending money instantly now. So those are examples where we have to adapt technologies for our realities, making sure that we understand the local culture, the local problems to give good solutions.
Now, I like how we're already discussing how, we need to fix the challenges that comes with certain Western models and how we try to adapt them here. But let's talk about locally. First of all, what do you think, what are the successful local startups, addressing African problems? If we have any, please let us know, and how can we further that? I know that in the areas like agriculture, there are certain local startups, that is using technology to, further advance the issue of food across Africa. So are there other local startups, and are there other ideas that you think that we can implement locally? Let's create local solutions to our local problems.
Exactly. First of all, this is, again, nice. What has been developed more in our region, in Nigeria especially, is fintechs, because of the need to move money from A to B across the country. So we have big fintechs, like, you know them already. But we are lacking, for example, into the creative economy. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're bringing here the project called My Opinion to actually monetize locally content creators. So so you have the fintechs, but the creative economy, let's say Nollywood, people are pushing to have like Netflix, to sell to Netflix. But why don't we have a local content creation and a monetization locally, so that we create the economy here and it stays here as well? Right now, it's like everybody wants to go abroad, wants to be seen on this big streaming, right? But why don't we have local streaming as well? So this is very interesting. You go on the streets in Nigeria, you go, I come here often in VI, and all these people, these young people are filming themselves. They're doing TikTok, they're dancing, but when they put so much effort in it, how much they're making? Do they make money out of it? Because these platforms have rules where they won't pay people in Nigeria, they won't pay people in Kenya or in Côte d'Ivoire. So we're producing content for them for almost free. This is a big problem. And then when you want to get monetized, you have to go to brokers abroad, where they would take your content and then sign you in France or in the States, and then you get a portion of your money as well. So there are opportunities, big opportunities. Fintechs is good, but also health tech, ed techs, and then you also have the creative economy.
Okay, speaking specifically about the creative economy, now these platforms that you just mentioned, predominantly owned by the West, they would argue that the reason why the monetization in Africa is lower because advertisers spend less money right here as opposed to how much they spend over there. Now, do you think that is a valid point? And if we are now creating our local platforms, how are we able to make sure that we also have the money to invest, which piggybacks on what you already stated, that we need more local investment earlier on. So now, okay, for the local platforms, how do we now ensure that, let's say, for example, a content creator earns what he or she is due?
Okay, so again,
what is the money source?
Again, the reason is partially valid. It's not valid because yes, they will spend less in this region, but they also make money out of people helping their own content creators. Let's say I like someone, I will just pay money to see that person. I will send coins or stuff like that. So it's not valid in the sense that Nigerians, let's say if they like Burna Boy, is on Instagram or something, they could pay money to have access to certain content. And then this money is captured 100% by this major platform abroad, and then they don't distribute here locally. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is that money, we say in French, like money brings money. Let's say the advertisers, right? When they see that the economy is picking up, like we have a creative economy, and then people are making money, that are more serious on it, they'll advertise more here. Because there's also one aspect of technology is like people, we call it ARPU, average revenue per unit, means that how much money do we have? Most people here are poor, right? So how much money do we have to put on social media? If the average is making $200 a month, average, how much money will you make? In the state, people are making $4,000 a month. So they can dash $50 in social media and then be comfortable, right? But here, it's $200. So we also have, it's something that have to be collective. Like, we have to grow the economy, grow people, lower poverty, so that we get more money to spend and consume on other things.
All right, well said. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. Yes. Where is Africa at the seats? Like, does Africa even have a seat at the table? That's the first question. Now, if you look at a lot of the artificial intelligence apps, you see that there's a lot of cultural thefts, if I'll put it that way. Now, you can literally make images of an African that looks like an African completely. You can give the African a particular accent, if it's an Ivorian accent or an Angolan accent or a Nigerian accent, and it sounds really good. Okay, so where are we in terms of all of these cultural nuances that is being taken and processed by these apps? Where are we at the table? Do we have a bit of ownership with it? You can literally take anybody's image and you can replicate it. Yes. So when it comes to rights, copyright and all of those conversations, where is Africa?
Yeah. Again, you have great questions, because Africa right now is lacking, is behind, and we're just consuming for now. Even this morning, I shared an article to my team, and it said basically that Africa represents 20% of the population, right? But only 1% of the data in the AI, because AI needs to be trained, right? So to learn Yoruba, to learn your culture, Igbo, whatever, anything, right? And the training from Africa, the data that we get is only 1% of AI, which is bad, meaning that AI right now represent more other cultures than local culture. And then Africans just use it, right? And then we don't own it for now. And then we need to push. And it's the same thing. It's like, who's going to invest in it? When you start an AI startup, who's going to invest? It's going to be a VC from the States, from Singapore, or from France, or from UK. So this is the same thing. So there's ownership of the business, and there's the ownership of the technology. But most of the time, who owns the business owns the technology with IP, intellectual property.
Yeah. Okay, well, such a sad reality, but it's a wake-up call for every African to just really do better. And for Africans that have the money, let us try and invest locally as opposed to investing in the West. Now, finally, if Africa fully embraces technology as a shortcut rather than playing catch-up, what do you think the next 10 years will look like for us?
The next 10 years is really, I think the future is bright. local governments in Nigeria. That's why we're here too, investing in the infra. You need connectivities, right? For those solutions, you need connectivity to put it, on your phone. You need devices. People need to get more money. You need to lower poverty, because right now a good smartphone is $100. Let's say 150,000 or 1.5 million naira, right? But you need more of those devices to put solutions in it. So it's going to be infra, it's going to be lower poverty, but also laws, regulations. Startup regulations, and then the justice legal system. Because you see this, it's funny, most of the startup that you're seeing here, they work here, they make money here, but they all registered in the States. It's funny, eh? Why? Because investors say they believe that if you're registered here in Nigeria or somewhere in Africa and then there's a problem, they won't be protected. So we also have to improve the legal system so that the investors feel protected, that yes, I can come and invest millions here without having the company registered in Delaware.
And that is truly sad. Thank you so much for
your insights, Steve,
and all the best with everything that you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Robin Mind continues after this break. Please stay with us.
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove.
Welcome back. This is Robin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were talking about how Africa can have its seats at the table when it comes to technology. We need to see technology as a shortcut and not necessarily play catch-up all the time. Now let's talk about what has been on the social media streets. Everybody's euphoric, and I think a lot of Nigerians are also tensed because the Grammy Awards takes place today. We have about 5 nominations: Burna Boy, Wizkid, Davido, Ira Star, Omale, and the list is just endless. And we're super excited about what the outcome would be. And a lot of people are having conversation as to who's going to bring home the Grammy. And the Grammy is such a big deal. Now we're going to talk about why artists, really just want this coveted awards. We're also going to cross that with our local awards here, and let's see what the future holds in the music industry. And to discuss this with me is a very seasoned social commentator and the founder of Ronam Projects, Mr. Joseph D.K. Abiagom. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Good.
Okay. We have about 5 nominations, if not more.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't miss out any nomination at all.
I mean,
maybe Thames. I don't know.
No,
Thames was not nominated.
Sure,
okay. Yeah. I know that Fela Kuti was given an honorary award, which is really great because he's an Afrobeat pioneer.
Well
Let's start with that.
I mean, Fela is well deserved, an icon, Afrobeat icon. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. But it's happening now. I think that's the most important thing. It's a great time for the Kuti family. It's a great time for Afrobeats, the founder of Afrobeats. You know what I mean? So I think it's very interesting that we get to celebrate this today. It's a win for the culture. It's a win for Afrobeats. It's a win for the industry as a whole. And you know that it's the first time an African man is given this sort of honorary award. So it's amazing stuff.
Amazing. I like the fact that you said that it's been a long time coming. It should have been done sooner. And then it came at the point where there was a social media conversation around, Fela Kuti, and you saw the drama with Wizkid, and a lot of the younger generation almost did not know the legacy of Fela. And I think this has just afforded the opportunity for such conversations to go. And that leads me to documentation. How do you think, as an industry, we need to document the legacies of those people that have come before us?
Man, it's that saying that, like, in order to know where you're going to, you need to know where you're coming from, right? Like, Fela's era is iconic, and is the reason why a lot of us have Burna Boy, the Wizkid and Davido. You see how much of their materials, his materials is sampled.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a need for documentation. There's a lot of younger generation of artists coming up, and with the internet, it's easy to forget, so there's a need for us to have much more Afrobeat documentaries. We need to read more materials. I think every music business executive or upcoming artist needs to educate themselves. They need to understand the culture, they need to understand the different eras of music, they need to understand, when foreign labels came into Nigeria, when they left, when they came back. There's so much different eras, and it's very important that we're able to you know, show those eras. And it's a time when knowledge is everywhere. Social media is like, you can get all the kind of information you need.
Right.
So it's definitely important.
Right. So Afrobeat has come a long way, a very, very long way. And of course, recently we're being recognized. I think, I don't know the particular year the Grammys created the category, but I know that the Best African Acts or Best African Performance.
That was last year.
That was just last year. Was created. So how did we get to this point? And it's a two-part question. Do you think creating a category does good for Afrobeats or does bad for Afrobeats?
Very interesting question. I do think that the results spoke for itself. You know, when we're selling out, we're selling out arenas, when we were having viral moments on social media, when we were, you know, entering Billboard charts, you know, the world was paying attention, and we definitely got the attention of the Grammys. To answer your second question, my personal, might be a controversial opinion, but I do think that having a category for only African talents sort of limits, you know, limits the spread. You know what I mean? I think you think of an artist like Chike who does R&B, you know, so because he does R&B music, are you going to categorize him in the African category when he should be, when he makes the sort of music that, you know, should be in best R&B categories? You know what I mean? I think it's a bit limiting, but yeah, this is where we are at the moment, and I think we also need to push for that. Like, hey, we need to be more out there in terms of having much more recognition outside the African category.
I stand to also be corrected because I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think there was a particular Nigerian artist that refused to perform backstage or something, because I think for the Grammys, there was a time they were giving out awards not in the main ceremony, but they were giving out awards at I don't know,
at the earlier part of the ceremony.
At the earlier part of the ceremony, you know, all of those things, has it changed?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, Nigerians in diaspora, right? I think we need to always appreciate that, right? The Nigerians in diaspora, they are really giving Afrobeats, you know, they're spreading the gospel of Afrobeats, right? And the advent of DSPs like Spotify, being able to listen to music like at the same time, in real time, has also helped the spread of Afrobeats, right? So, hey, sorry, question again?
No, I'm saying issues like giving the awards out at the earlier part of the ceremony and not necessarily the main parts, you know, it sort of creates it almost downplays our efforts and like, okay, these guys are just not where they should be, but we just want to give them something.
I believe we'll get there. We're already getting there. You know, I think the first step was having a category that was like, you know, African-based music. Last year we got the awards at the main ceremony.
Right.
And soon we'll be getting the Album of the Year awards by, you know, an African talent. But I think we're definitely getting there.
Fantastic. Let's not talk about the nominations. I mean, incredible lineup. There's Davido featuring Omali, there's Wizkid, there's Burna Boy, and I don't know, was it Wizkid featuring Ira Star?
No, Ira Star featuring Wizkid.
Ira featuring Wizkid.
Give Me Love,
These were the
nominations.
The nominations from our part. And then there's Tyler. A lot of people are scared of Tyler. Now, some people would argue that, okay, they refer to her as the industry plant, quote unquote. Please, can you just analyze the nomination and what hope should we have? Because a lot of Nigerians are really hopeful at this point.
Man, I'm going to be biased here, man.
Okay.
But like, to be realistic, Tyler had a great year. She, after what she did with Water, you know, the records she has been tuning out has been amazing. I mean, amazing records, great production. David had a great year. I do personally think that his album itself should have been nominated for Best Global Music Awards because it's an amazing album. But the record with Omali, it had such cultural impact last year. The Ira Star and Wizkid Give Me Love records, such a beautiful collaboration. The lyrics were beautifully written, the production top notch. You know, the music video, great, just, you know, such African heritage, and it was just a beautiful thing to watch. Yeah, I do think that, like, everybody deserved to be in that category. But I'm waiting for Davido.
You're rooting for Davido. Okay. I almost thought you were about to say Tyler.
No,
I wanted to know
no.
which legs you want to walk out of this studio from.
I'm going to be like, she had a great year.
Okay.
But I think that Davido should win this one.
There was a particular viral clip. I don't know if it was the Grammys or another award ceremony where Tyler was awarded as the best Afrobeats artist. And she's like, no, I don't do Afrobeats, I do Amapiano.
Yeah.
And it caused such a stir in the music scene. And some people would now argue that, okay, I mean, is she an Afrobeats artist? Is she doing Amapiano? I mean, aren't we all doing African music and all of that drama? What do you make of that?
Yeah. I think I'm going to actually ask you the question, right? When you listen to Tyler, what do you listen to mostly?
I don't know.
Amapiano?
Yes, Amapiano.
Exactly.
No. Okay.
She makes Amapiano music. And so...
but she won the category for Best Afrobeats.
Yeah, exactly. So I do agree with her. You know, if you're going to give awards appropriately. You know, and I think it was such a huge thing that she came out to say, hey, you know, I know that there are a lot of people doing more Afrobeat-centric music. Maybe kind of give a Best Amapiano music, sort of, you know. So yeah, I do agree with her.
All right. Now let's talk about how these awards are given out. Can you explain to us the machinery? Because I don't think it's public voting. There's a jury.
Oh yeah,
right.
Of course, yeah.
And you know, there are always conversations around how, you know, whether the jury is influenced, it's not influenced, you know, by the big music execs in America and all of that. What do you make of it?
So the conversation about big music execs in America, I don't think that it's not that anymore, right? We have, you know, African execs, you know, in Grammy juries, right? There's such a thing called being a professional member of the Grammy Awards, right? And that allows you to have voting rights, especially with, you know, African talents. Yeah, like, and also this is one of the things that, you know, the Afrobeat is really moving on, because, you know, we have a lot of African executives now having positions as professional members in the Afrobeat space. And that's basically, you know, you then know that, like, this is being voted by the people, right?
Okay.
I would say that generally the Grammy are sort of, sometimes they make questionable, you know, decisions, but however, over the years, we've seen that, like, you know, they have been very transparent about the voting process.
Okay.
You know, I would like to believe that that is what it is.
Okay, okay. I know already you've told me who your fave is, but again, I'm going to ask you, who do you want to win the best African music category?
Again, Davido,
okay.
Omale, with you.
Okay,
okay,
that's fine. Now, what is that one song or that one hit record that you felt should have gotten a nomination?
So I would say Anything by Davido. I think that it was such a beautifully written record. I think that, you know, the storytelling was great, and it was great African perspective. So that would be the record. Okay. Yeah. Now, and that's not because it was my writer that wrote the record, but it's okay.
All right. And so apart from the artists that have already won the Grammys, which other artists do you think would actually win the Grammy in the future? Apart from
definitely Rema. Definitely Rema. Rema has everything it takes. Rema exploits a lot of sounds.
Why hasn't he been nominated?
I think, you know, the Grammys they have a window for, you know, I think it's August. So for this category, it'll be August 2024 to August 2025, right? I think the last album Rema released was July. You know, just a month before the window for nominations. Exactly. And there's also another thing that, like, a lot of artists need to pay attention to. If you're going to release music, make sure you understand that, like, and you want the Grammys, make sure you understand that, like, you know, you need to check for the window so you're nominated, except that's not your plan.
So as an artist, should I prioritize a Grammy win over sold-out shows or sold-out shows over a Grammy win?
Definitely not.
Which one?
Definitely not the Grammys. You should prioritize... I mean, Grammys are great, right? Awards are always a way to recognize, you know, your hard work, right?
Yeah, excuse me.
But touring, it's a lot of money coming into you. It's basically expanding your market and, you know, artist development for yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I definitely prioritize touring.
Okay. Now, what can we learn from what is happening with the Grammys as Indigenous Music Awards? Like, what can we do better? Two sides. From the organizers of the Indigenous Awards, how can they organize better awards? And then from the side of the people, how can we hype, let's say, awards like Headies, right? How can we hype it as much as we hype the Grammys? How can we value Sound City MVP Awards? I don't even know if they came back after a couple of years. How can we give it that, you know, validation that it deserves?
So first thing first, I will have to applaud the Headies. I think that over the years, they've gotten better with their awards. They've gotten better with the organizations. In terms of, like, you know, emulating what goes on with the Grammys, I think it's just the transparency of the voting process. Who are the guys actually making these decisions? Is it open to more music executives? You know, I mean, those kinds of transparency to the public definitely would, you know, make the awards much more impactful. Also, just generally, the Nigerians should, you know, we are very competitive people,
right?
And we are very, like, we carry our culture in our head, right? If you want us to carry our culture in our head, you know, take us along with it. And you one way to take us along with it is transparency.
All right, so, thank you very much, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
And I hope the artist you're rooting for truly wins. Okay?
Yeah, what are you rooting for, though?
Well, I can't. I'm a neutral person,
no,
right?
You have
here.
to say.
This seat,
what do you think you have
this
to say?
position that I'm in, I have to be neutral. We're rooting for all of them. We love all of them. Whiskey, Burna Boy, Ira Star, Omale, Davido. You know, whoever wins, wins, all right? And that's all we have for you on this particular edition of Rubbing Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. I do hope you've enjoyed this, and hopefully I get to see you next week, same time, same station. Bye for now.